It's okay now?
Yeah, it's all right now.
Okay. So that's why we try to uh, try digital mapping using the drone, how we can uh, make a more detailed map of the Basin. So we use the DJI Phantom 4 Pro drone. This is a light quadcopter, what's that? Equipped with only RGB camera. This is the optical sensor camera. And then if you see the map on the left side, this is the location of Litisab Abisin and the other location of the other peatlands here in the Philippines. So the purpose of this presentation is just to share our experiences in mapping the project area using drone. We also use a real-time kinematic GPS receiver to make sure that the image that we get really is put in the correct geographical location. We call it in technical terms a georeference. And for the software, we use the pics for the software to process the images that we got from the field. And then we also use drone deploy software and map pilot software in preparing and implementing the flight plans. I will discuss later why we use these two different software in preparing and implementing our flight plans. So what we learned? So after we gathered our maps and then, take shots on the field and then we process the image, we were able to know that of the total project area, there are already 618 hectares already been cultivated for agriculture, mostly rice and vegetables. But you look at the, as I said earlier, that if you look at NAMRIA land cover map, these are just called classified lumply as swamp land. And also, we were able to look at closely and locate these areas are born. Suspectedly, these are already being prepared for, opening for agriculture. That's why the farmers just burn the area and then cultivate later. And then there are also areas covered with shrub. So we know that these some areas are already shrub, and there are still areas, big area that is still intact, close forest. So before we have these images, we cannot really pinpoint where are the close forest, where are the shrubs, where is the agricultural area, and where are the grass areas. So these are some of the shots taken. We're showing the rice areas, the born areas, the close forest, the shrubs, and the grassy areas. Okay. And the drone is also capable of collecting LiDAR information. LiDAR means it's like a point data where you can use it to get the correct elevation, very high resolution um, elevation data. And our resolution for our LiDAR data is around 50 centimeters. So every 50 centimeter you have a elevation data. That's why we were able to, you look at the left side figure, there's a circle there. Over there, we try to run like a ground profile analysis, and the graph in the right side shows you the, the ground surface, ground surface analysis, and it is very clearly shown here that the one with the round circle in the left is the suspected pit dome. Pit dome, it runs around 5.5 kilometers, and the difference in height from the lowest to the highest is around 6 to 7 meters. So without this analysis before, we cannot pinpoint where is the suspected pit dome. But with the LiDAR information taken from the drone, we found out this pit dome. Okay, and then using also the images and the detailed contour map that we were able to derive, we were able to pinpoint 3 topographic physical barriers in the whole project area. And you know, these physical barriers are the one that holds the water and any organic matter in situ. Because this is the condition that will promote the development of pit soil. And from the from the drone image also, we were able to pinpoint where are the source of water or the creeks that supports water or contributes water to these 3 physical barriers, such that the pit soil development will be enhanced. And also in the LiDAR data, we were able to classify the height of vegetation per section. So we tried to look to divide the whole area into subsections, and we tried to run a vegetational height analysis. And you can see here in the graph the distribution of the different heights of vegetation per section. So in this case, if we only have information about the diameter of the trees in each
Nakapasok ka?
section. Yes?
Nakapasok
Huh?
po si tatay.
There's the background noise. Anyway, so with this, if you have this, I think the diameter at the bridge, we can easily calculate the above ground.
Facebook, punta ka ron sa ano, hindi ko na maibabalik, baka mawala ito eh.
Sorry, excuse me. To the participants, please remember to mute your microphones to avoid interrupting Pastor Garcia's session. Thank you.
Okay, so with this information plus the breast height, diameter of trees, we can easily calculate the carbon stack. So what we need is a certain study that will relate. There are already certain studies in other countries that relates height of the tree and the diameter. But I think we need to also do that here in the Philippines, in sub-abyssine, whether the result in other countries about the height diameter relationship is the same, but I suspect it will not be the same. So with that added information, we can easily get the above ground carbon stack. No. Okay, what are the limitations that we feel that we need for this using mapping using drone? Well, we were able to get very important information using drone. However, the drone that we use, we only use the and because that we cannot make a very analysis about species classification of vegetation, like different tree species, where are this broadleaf, where are this something. And because we need one more sensor, which is the infrared, near infrared sensor. So there are already drones if for people or for researchers who would like to buy a drone for mapping, especially for our peatland. There are already drones now that have four sensor system, the RGB plus the NIR, the near infrared sensor. If we have this one, then we can have a very more detailed analysis of the vegetation using drone. And the estimation of above ground and below ground carbon stock, as I said, using drone can also be done, but we need additional information. Above ground is okay. We just need one study about um, relating the height and the diameter of trees. Then we can get the calculate the above ground carbon stock. But for the below ground carbon stock, the drone is cannot do that. So we need to complement the drone image or the drone data from detailed soil survey. That's why drone is for around the below ground. We need another tools. Okay. When we also conduct our drone mapping, we found out that in our area that we plan for pipeline is very big. The line of sight between the drone and the controller, it will be some problem. So sometimes the controller will lose the signal from the drone. So that the drone has a home function such that it will just go back to the starting position when you lost your control with the controller. And the number of batteries, one time we have to increase our number of batteries. One time we only have two batteries. Two batteries only good for 20 to 30 minutes per battery. So it's not enough if you go there and add the data. You need to have at least 8 batteries to optimize your time when you are in the field. And sometimes it's not so easy to go into the field in Peatland. You have to walk because there is no there is no road going there where the four-wheel vehicle can go into. So you need to maximize your time while you are there. Have more batteries with you. One time we also fly during early morning and late in the afternoon, and when we try to analyze the image and select shadows decrease, and it's sometimes it's easy and difficult to analyze and even to mosaic different images with these shadows. So we thought the 9 o'clock totality is good enough. The shadow problem is not much a problem. Okay, one time also we were having a data gathering. The pen that we stand in a place very near to power lines. I mean, with very high voltage, and we experience some interference in the signal of the between the drone and the controller. And what is we also stand very close to a generator set, and also the abnormalities in the signal when the drone already fly. No? one time also near cell site because this emits
Sorry,
magnetic.
Dr. Pastor, your time is running up already. So we would need you to wrap up soon. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have one or two on taking images surrounding mountain areas. That's where we use this other drone software, the Mapay software, because it has a follow terrain functionality. The other software which is drone deploy, it will just fly in a straight or level path. So if you have mountain, it might hit the mountain and you will lose your drone. Yeah, as I said, the ground control points is very important to make sure you have your images in precise position. Okay, these are some of the concluding remarks. Use of drones significantly help in our analysis of the topography, vegetation, but not the vegetation speed, vegetation height, present unused on the cover and issues like burning and deleting sub-abrasive. There are, however, challenges and limitations using drone, but with additional tools and sensor mapping of land can be practically easy and less effort. So these are some of the documentation of pictures that we took in feed and our data processing and analysis in our office. I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the very informative talk, Dr. Pastor. I think that's amazing how we incorporate technology into mapping peatlands and gathering data for us to be able to translate that into better management practices, better decisions, and science-based policies. So next, our next presenter, let me share her profile here. Is Dr. Lilibeth G. Miralles from Visayas State University. She is an associate professor specializing in the social sciences, and she'll be presenting about peatland fires in the Leyte Sava Basin, peatlands and the challenges in its prevention. So over to you, Dr. Lilibeth. We look forward to a great talk. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. You can share your presentation. Dr. Lilibeth, are you there?
Yeah.
All right, over to you.
Can you now see my presentation?
No, not yet. You have to click share screen and select the correct window.
Okay.
Okay, can see it. Now you just have to maximize that window. Yep. All right.
Okay, good noon, good day to everyone. I hope everybody is safe with COVID-19. Let me start my presentation with me sharing actually how this study was conceptualized. First, I was a recipient of a research fund from the Forest Foundation of the Philippines through the International Institute of Rural Reconstruction. The study then was about the socio-ecological and political systems in Leyte Saba Basin Peatland. And then when I presented, by the way, the study is still ongoing. And when I presented the partial results of the study to the regional stakeholders, uh, we received a vehement comment trying to tell me that I should have gone to the details about the peatland fires that are happening in Leyte Saba Basin Peatland. So for this morning, allow me to share with you this. By the way, this is a commissioned research. I commissioned, it is me who commissioned this research to one of the graduating students of Visayas State University in Alang-Alang. So the research was done in close coordination with me, of course. So let me present to you this morning, today, the study entitled Peatland Fires in Leyte Saba Basin Peatlands and the Challenges in its Prevention. To give you a background of Leyte Saba Basin Peatland, Leyte Saba Basin Peatland is located in the northeastern part of the island of Leyte. And it has an approximate area based on official statistics given by the Department of Natural Resources, Environment and Natural Resources in the Philippines of about 3,088 hectares. However, sad to say, in the 1970s, no less than the government attempted to convert the peatland to a food basket for the island of Leyte. And out of this initiative, the government did construction of drainage canals within the peatland, of course, to drain the water that was in the peatland. And then they also distributed parcels of areas to farmers. And this was done by awarding certificate of land ownership agreement to specific farmers. And this resulted to the conversion of 49% of this peatland into farmlands. The study is so focused on the part of the peatland that includes 4 communities, and one of these community is part of the municipality of Santa Fe, and 3 communities are part of the municipality of Alang-Alang. You can see it in the map. So why talk about peatland fires? You can see in one of the pictures, this is a picture of the remaining forest patch in Leyte Saba Basin Peatland. And then sometime last year, it was only last year, peatland fires occurred in Leyte Saba Basin Peatland. And that, if this will not be abated, if this will not be controlled, it could lead to this sort towards the right side. You will see the destruction really caused by peatland fires. The study has 3 specific objectives: to determine the incidences of peatland fires in Leyte Saba Basin peatlands, determine the causes of peatland fires in Leyte Saba Basin peatland, and to determine if there are actions made by communities and local government units on the prevention of these peatland fires. So for the methodology, we did a household interview with randomly selected 54 households within the 4 communities. And then when we were doing the interview, we had that instruction to the interviewees that the reckoning period for the information that they're going to give us is within a 10-year period from 2010 to 2019. Aside from the household survey, we also did key informant interview. And then the informants that we interviewed were representatives, one from the Bureau of Fire Protection, both in the municipalities of Alang-Alang and Santa Fe. We also had representatives from the Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Units, also of Alang-Alang and Santa Fe. And we also interviewed representatives of the local government units of Alang-Alang and Santa Fe. So what were the informations generated from these interviews and the household interviews and the key informant interviews? For the household interviews, the 54 respondents, we found out that most of those that we interviewed were actually parents of couples. The couple, when we say the couple, it's the husband and the wife in the household. In the absence, we interviewed the parents. And then as to the gender of the respondents, by the way, the first graph gives us the idea that the respondents we had in the study were in a position to give us the data that we needed in the study. Then for the second figure, we have it there that to make sure that the females and the males were properly represented in the study, we have to devise something in the selection of the respondents that will be having 50 females and 50 males. Then in terms of average values, so for the age, we found out that the average age was 46.2 years old, which means the respondents were in the active years of their lives. And then household size of 4.46 members to the average. And then considerably low educational attainment of 6.98 years. This denotes in the Philippine educational system, this is a grade 7 now in the K to 12 basic education. So this is grade 7. In the old ones, this can be termed as first year high school. So this is something to do when it comes to information, because the educational attainment would have something to do on the processing of information in an individual. And then the length of residence in the community, we were able to establish that those persons who interviewed have been living for a longer time in the community for an average of 27.5 years. So in terms of the sources of income of the households, it really stood out that the dominant source of income is rice farming. Try to consider 74.1% of the 54 respondents were into rice farming. And then 16.7% were into farm labor. So if you notice, the sources of income mostly relate to farming activities. So you have coconut farming, and then you also have tuba gathering. Tuba is a wine collected from the sap of coconut. And then, of course, there are those non-related. You have being a motorcycle operator, which is the mode of transportation from these communities to the municipalities. So you have 6% out of 54 respondents, and some also are into employment, both from the government or in the private sector. So what are the reasons why people go into slash and burn practice? Of course, 74.3% of the respondents said that it is the fastest way of clearing the area. So it's the most convenient. It is not resource depleting on the part of the farmer, because they only have to burn the area. And then after burning the area, it would be easy for them to plant crops. And you know what? There is also a belief of these farmers that ashes burned plant vegetation debris can really be used as fertilizer. So this is part of the belief of the farmers. And then in terms of the area in the peatland that is affected by fire, as actually seen by the respondents, so 38.9% or 54 respondents say that they usually would see it near the area of the new era. By the way, new era, I did not mention this to be one of the communities, but actually this is a newly established community within the Peatland. And this is a community of a religious group. It's a big religious group. So, and then we were just quite glad because the result of the study told us that only 5.6% of the 54 respondents reported that they have observed peatland fires somewhere in Tabanguhay. I am saying we are quite glad because Tabanguhay is that parcel of the three parcels of land as categorized by Dr. Garcia and the other members of the research team from Visayas State University, Alang-Alang, that still has intact forest. Then, in terms of the number of times that the respondents have observed peatland fires in the peatland, 35.2% of the 54 respondents said that they have observed 1 to 2 times in a year. 1 to 2 times rather, not in the year, but in the 10-year duration period. And then we have this extreme of 9.3% of the 54 respondents who reported that they have seen more than 5 times within the reckoning time. And in terms of the area in the peatland that is affected by the peatland fires, 31.5% of the 54 respondents say that at least the peatland fires is less than 1 hectare. However, to that extreme, that 1.8 of the 54, 1.8% of the 54 respondents have noticed that the coverage of the peatland fires is even more than 10 hectares. Then in terms of the number of days before peatland fires is put off in Leyte Saba Basin peatlands. So 44.4% of the respondents claimed or reported to us that these peatland fires are put off in less than a day. However, the extreme case is we have 1.8% of the 54 respondents who told us that the fires can be put off in greater, more than 3 days. So it would take a longer period. And then in terms of the vegetation that is affected by peatland fires, 65% of the respondents claim that vegetation that are affected by peatland fires are trees, sedges, and grasses, and that there are 35% of the 54 respondents that even the rice fields are also sometimes affected by peatland fires. So in terms of the number of times in a year that peatland fires occur in Leyte Saba Basin peatland, 90.3% of the respondents said that they would notice 1 to 3 times 3 times in a year. And to the extreme that we have 6.4% of the 54 respondents who claim that they have seen and witnessed 7 to 10 times in a year. So when we also ask them what is the intensity of the peatland fires that they have observed in Leyte Saba Basin peatlands, so there were those who perceived that the peatland fire is as intense, it's intense. So this is 38.7% of the 54 respondents, and to the extreme that we have 22.6% who just described the intensity of the peatland fires to be very weak. Intensity of the peatland fire would have something to do on the number of days it took before the fire was put off, and also the area that was affected by the peatland fires. And that peatland fires, according to 31.5% of the respondents, usually would happen every year, and that this usually happens during the dry months, April to June. 93.55% of the 54 respondents, and there were few, 6.45% of the respondents who say that it would sometime also happen during the months of July to September. So, what are the causes of peatland fires in Leyte Saba Basin peatland? The respondents told us that there are top 3 causes of peatland fires, and these include farming. 46.3% of the 54 respondents reported that, and fishing is 9.3%, and then of course hot weather, that is this one is brought forth by climate change. So long duration dry months would really be a risk for peatland fires in Leyte Saba Basin peatland. So to be specific, what are the people's activities that causes peatland fire? So they really mentioned about slash and burn. 64.8% of the respondents reported that this is still happening. And but then towards the end, they told us that, Mom, actually, it has already declined. Why? Because people tend to use machineries in their farms. But still, there are those who insist to practice this one. And then we have illegal logging, which is 7.4% of the 54 respondents. Actually, illegal logging could be related to slash and burn because while people know that it is prohibited to be cutting trees in the peatland, so they still do it. They still insist to do it. And then after cutting the trees, they will burn the leaves and the twigs of the trees. So it now becomes part of slash and burn practice also. And then fishing is also an activity that causes peatland fire. Why fishing? Because we only people only catch fish, but then it is not as simple as that. See, because people find it difficult to catch fish with the vegetation on the surface of the peatland. So what they usually do, they cut this vegetation and then they burn it, and so the water is already exposed, and so they are now free to catch fish. And that illegal hunting and of wildlife is also an activity that causes peatland fire. Later, I will be discussing the reason why this becomes a threat to peatland fire.
Dr.
So why
Lilibeth,
do
just
house?
a
Yes.
hello. Yeah, just a reminder, you have about 3 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. So what are the reasons why households do fishing? Food as a food source, as a source of income. Why do households need wildlife hunting? Because it's also a food source, it's a source of income. And then they have one reason that the animals destroy, they eat the crops. So they have to avoid it. So that's why they kill, they hunt those animals. And what are the tools used for hunting? So this is the one that makes it a threat to house to peatland fire. Uh, they usually would use improvised guns or improvised explosive. And once the animal eat the bait with an improvised explosive in it, it explodes, and it does not just kill the animal. It can also be a threat, a point to start a fire. And then, why do people do illegal logging even if they know it is not allowed? Because it's a source of income. And then the peatland can be converted into a farmland. And it's also a communal way of thinking among Filipinos. Sad to say, I'm a Filipino. But then usually we Filipinos, if we live in a community, people living in the community would consider all the things that are found in the community to belong also to them. So that's one of the reasons why they do illegal logging. Then we are happy in the lighter side of this research that there are activities being done by the municipal local government units for the prevention of peatland fires. And there are also activities being done by the communities for the prevention of peatland fires. Even at the household level, there are also activities that they do. There are actions that they do. But then we cannot this is part of the limitation when we do survey, when we interview people, even if it is eye-to-eye contact, because people can always easily mask information. They say that they follow practices, policies implementing in conserving the peatland. But in some point, some of this that they claim they're doing is contrary to what they really are doing. But they claim they're doing it. So in summary, we were able to establish this baseline data that households are aware of incidences and causes of peatland fire in the peatland in Leyte Saba Basin. The causes of these peatland fires are actually deeply rooted to their activities like farming, fishing, and illegal handling of wildlife, illegal logging, and also, of course, the inclusion of weather conditions. Not mentioned in this is there are drainades that are man-made that was constructed way back in the 1970s, and not totally these drainage channels are blocked to really keep the water within the peatland. So there are also existing actions by the municipal local government unit and the communities and even the households, but they need to be intensified. So we have formulated three major recommendations. What are these? First, it's more intensive implementation of local and national policies against activities like slash and burn, illegal hunting of wildlife, and fishing. And then this can be done if there is a regular monitoring of people's activities and also patrolling in the peatland area. So this is where the peatland rangers could come in. And then farmers may be extended alternative livelihood options to minimize farming activities. Alternative livelihood options, because we were able to establish that one of the major reasons why they do these activities that are really exposing the peatland into peatland fires, it's because it is a food source, it is a primary source of income. So if they be given alternative livelihood options, then perhaps we can abate, we can control peatland fires. But of course, in addition to what I have been hearing in the discussions of the conference participants, one of which is really to intensify, educate people within the peatland to go into peatland friendly farming technologies. As I have heard from Dr. Ellie, uh, uh, people can plant rice, but then plant rice that are water loving, water tolerant varieties. But then, as I also have heard from the presentation yesterday, that we should not also deprive those parts of the peatland that have been already converted to rice lands. We can allow these people to continue the farming, but actually experience, there are so many farmers are saying that they really find it difficult because in terms of the production level of what they're doing, it's not that good. So thank you for allowing me. Thank you for the organizers giving me the opportunity to share the findings of this study. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you for that very informative talk, Dr. Lilibeth. I think we all learned quite a bit. It's very eye-opening about how things are on the ground for the locals who are actually in peatland landscapes. So there is a healthy build-up of discussion and questions going on in the chat box. So to our speakers, please feel free to respond in the chat box, but we will have a discussion session at the end, so we can also answer the questions there. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our final speaker, Ms. Teresita Alcoba Policarpio, who will be giving a talk about weaving as a sustainable product that supports sustainable management, sustainable peatland management, the story of teakop weavers. She will be representing women enablers, advocates, and volunteers for empowering and responsive solutions, or weavers for short. So I'll be putting up her PowerPoint now. Ms. Teresita, feel free to take it from here. May I know if Ms. Teresita is in the session right now? You may begin your presentation if you are. You are muted currently. Maybe you could unmute your mic. Maybe there are some technical issues going on, but while we wait for Mr. Sita to figure it out, maybe we could all, we will share the links to our People for Peat social media and also our mailing list in the chat box soon.
Ayan na, agad na nakashare na.
Nakashare na?
Hi,
Okay.
is that you? All right, all right.
Thank
Take it
you.
on from here.
Hindi na lang.
Okay na.
Ano ka naman? Oh, sige.
Start na ako.
Yeah, you can start now.
My name is Teresita Alcover Policarpio. I am a Tikog weaver. I am the owner of Taps Handmade Products that produces bags and other products made of woven Tikog. I am in this business for 20 years and I learned Tikog weaving from Tikog weavers. I share my skills with women living in Leyte Peatland areas in Alang-Alang and Santa Fe. There are patches of Tikog found in swampy areas all over the region. It is particularly abundant in the Leyte Peat swamp forest in Alang-Alang, Santa Fe, and San Miguel Leyte. We source our Tikog raw materials in Tolosa, Leyte. Tikog are ready for harvesting every 2 months when they are matured, but only leaves are harvested. They are dried under the heat of the sun for 3 to 5 days, depending on the weather. They are flattened using small pieces of wood. They are woven into mats by hand. Sometimes we color or dye the materials with synthetic dye, then dried again and woven into mats. In Eastern Visayas, there are highly skilled mat weavers in Basay Samar, but they source their Tikog raw materials from Leyte.
Kulat punta ni na yan niya guys.
Mats or finished woven products are designed and weaved according to the demands of buyers. Tikog mats are made into bags like tutti bags, convention bags, backpacks, wallets, purses, and other souvenir items. They are durable materials for set covers and cushion covers. Tikog can be an environment-friendly alternative to disposable masks. Tikog weaving is a living tradition, especially in Basay Samar. Prior to the pandemic, we had a stable market of Tikog mats and byproducts since 2000. Prior to the pandemic, we had a stable market of Tikog mats and byproducts since 2000. Our established markets are local buyers, malls, and exporters. We also have buyers from Italy, Malaysia, Guam, and USA. These are the women Tikog gatherers in the Leyte Peatland. I trained them on weaving early this year. Thus, the sustainable livelihoods of hundreds of weavers in Samar and Leyte depends on the protection of the remaining peatlands. Without the Tikog, we won't have a business that sustained us for decades. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Teresita, for your talk. So now we've gone through all three of our talks today. And let me switch back to this. We will now enter our Q&A session, but before that, just what we have listened to today was first a talk by Dr. Pastor Garcia from VSU, talking about how he mapped the Leyte Saba Basin, Peatland Basin using technology, GIS, and also drone technology. And then we had Dr. Lilibeth who showed us the social aspect of what it is like on the ground at peatlands in Leyte Saba Basin, the reasons why people do the things they do, or how they respond to questionnaires, and when they're being asked on why and what they are doing. Very interesting dynamics going on socially. And then we had the final session just now by Mr. Rosita about teacock weaving that showed how value could be created from a sustainable product, a non-timber sustainable product from the peatlands of Philippines. So these are all three very interesting talks showing different aspects of what the peatlands can be about. And now we'd like to perhaps take some of those questions that we have been accumulating in the chat from the beginning. So let us see if we go back. Dr. Pastor has already answered a question from Ma'am Simplicia. So I will move on to the next one from there. Let's see. We have a question from Graham about how many of the peatland fires actually burnt peat. I believe all the fires mentioned in the study should have been at the Leyte Saba Basin. So would anyone like to comment on that one?
Can I say something about it?
Yes, sure.
Yes, the one that I reported are peatland fires that are really happening, that has occurred in Leyte Saba Basin peatland, and that just a clarification. The data was when we were collecting the data, we made it clear to our data sources that they have to reckon to a 10-year period of time from 2010 to 2019. Why only up to 2019? Because we collected the data in the early part of this year, before COVID-19, so from January to February. But then, as we were collecting the data, we really made clear to the respondent that they have to reckon their experiences, their observations, in the last 10 years, from 2010 to 2019. By the way, I have noticed 4 questions in the chat box. One of the questions has something to do with whether there are monitoring stations for peatland fires and activities of people. So that's the reason why we included it in our recommendations, because based on the interviews, while there are actions being made by the municipal local government units, the communities, however, we failed to establish that they have this some sort of monitoring stations. And in terms, somebody was asking as to the residents, the length of residence, and whether these people who are practicing slash and burn are really inhabitants, original inhabitants of the area. In this present study, we did not go into that, but then in the study that I did before this study that I have just reported, I was able to establish that there are a lot of migrants from other places to the area. In fact, many of the inhabitants in that new era community, which is a newly established community, are not really from that area. And not only the new era part, in the other barangays as well, or communities, there are also migrants. but in the study we did not include an analysis on that. So it gives us the idea. I welcome the idea that perhaps that could be something to be focused more in detail in some follow-up studies. And then there was also a question as to whether there are initiatives for the prevention of peatland fires. Of course, I mentioned it, but just in passing because of time constraints in the presentation, that there are initiatives, there are plans, rather actions being made by the municipal local government units of Santa Fe and Alang-Alang, and the communities. There are also actions being made by the community, and also even with the households at the household level. But these perhaps are not sufficient. They need to be strengthened. That's why that's part of the recommendations. And then there is another question about the need to study in detail the area that is affected by the fire. Again, this could be in a follow-up study that we really need to look into if the pit was really damaged by these peatland fires that has been happening in Leyte Saba Basin peatland. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your multiple responses to some questions, some of them from Dr. Hesti Tata. There is another question here that's asking about species abundance before and after burn incidences. I'm not sure if, would anyone like to comment on that one?
Let me say something about it because I am part of the research team from BECU Alang-Alang. We have a team who takes charge of the biodiversity in Leyte Saba Basin peatland. However, sad to say, it is not included in their planned data analysis to really go into the details as to what are these species that are affected by the peatland fires, trying to reconcile before the peatland fires have been occurring and after it has occurred, what are these species? It could be plants, it could be animals. But the study is still ongoing, trying to identify what are specific species that are found in Leyte Saba Basin peatland. This is being taken care of by one of our faculty members, Ms. Hiremeros Matutis.
Thank you for that response, Dr. Elizabeth. So, okay, carry on to the next, maybe I'll go down the list further. There's a question from Joanna Marie Ebelind, whether there is ongoing dialogue between the Departments of Agrarian Reform and Environment and Natural Resources on the awarding of CLOAs to peatland areas. Would anyone have information on that?
Let me also say something about it. I know the study is still ongoing. The proponent is no less than a lawyer in the person of Attorney Reposar. His study is focusing on this parcels of land that has been distributed to farmers, and I know they are close into trying to come up with a recommendation that there really should be a some sort of discussion between the Department of Agrarian Reform and the Department of Environment and Natural Sciences, Natural Resources rather. But I know there are problems.
Thank you for that response. There is a question from Yenan Lena on fishing activity directed at Dr. Lilibeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fishing methods that people are using. That is still on. Have you already responded to that? Did I miss it?
Actually, I have a slide on that, but then finally I decided not to include in the presentation because it is not the tool that is used in fishing that is posing threat to peatland fire. It is on the primary activity that people do before the actual fishing. They want to get rid of the surface vegetation, so they can freely catch fish on water. In terms of the fishing method, I was able to establish that the methods being used, they're using some are using the the net, and then some are using actually illegal because they are using a a herb that is poisonous to plants, and in fact it is also claimed to be carcinogenic to humans. So if they are going to use it, then I also do not know if there would be a some sort of a chain effect to humans, and locally we call the plant as tubli. And while there are also those who are using electric fishing, and which are also illegal.
Very interesting. Thank you for highlighting these activities. Okay, let me see. Moving down the list. Another one for Dr. Beth. Is there any monitoring station in the area to control the human activity? Same as monitoring station present in other peat reserve area.
Actually, I appreciate the efforts being done by the International Institute for Rural Reconstruction that is funded by no less than the Forest Foundation of the Philippines, because they were able to organize a consortium. The consortium is participated by multi-stakeholders that really have important stakes on the sustainable management of the peatland. So people are already getting involved. By the way, I also noticed that question. There is a question about which I was not able to explain thoroughly, considering that I am not the proponent of the study, about the dialogue between DNR and DAR. Uh, uh, it is so possible that this dialogue will really happen. Why? Because both these two agencies are members of the consortium, and then usually this consortium would discuss relevant matters. IIRR would usually host discussions, roundtable discussions of these multi-stakeholders.
Thank you for that. So there is a question here from Zoysen about whether we are able to map occurrence of peat fires, which I think would be suitably answered by Dr. Pastor. But before that, I just want to highlight that there are open source tools that map fires worldwide, like VIRS, VIIRS, and also MODIS, that can be accessed from, it's basically open source, anyone can look for it. It's usually accurate up to within a week. So you should be able to get that data and overlay it with Peat extend data. But maybe Dr. Pastor, you would like to add to that.
Excuse me. Sorry, I was writing answer to Mr. Judah.
Oh, I was just asking whether you would like to add to our ability to map the occurrence of peat fires. A question from Zoysen in the chat box.
Okay. Actually, in our mapping, we were able to pinpoint the exact location of these areas that has been burned. But during our mapping activity, there was no actual burning that was captured. But of course, if there is that one, especially when there is a fire that is going on, drone mapping would be very important. You can fly the drone and then you can assess how much the damage due to the fire.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pastor. I noticed that Judah from Wetlands International have raised his hand patiently for a long time now. So would you like to bring that question forward to Dr. Pastor?
Yes, thank you, Joe. I would like to thank Dr. Pastor for clarifying about boundaries because he presented the results of his study in terms of defining the dome. No? The reason why I raised that question, Doc Pastor, is that one, sometime last year, the local government unit of Santa Fe called us, invited us into a public hearing. In that public hearing, they were tackling the issue of sand and gravel permits that are being applied for within the Peatland area. And the DPWH representative who was there mentioned that the road, especially that road that traverses Barangay San Isidro and New Era, uh, may actually be outside of the Peatland area, the boundary. However, if you look at the map, it's actually within the catchment area. And that's why I asked that question. Mainly because the LGU could not properly reply to that question. And this is relative to, you know, the buildup of vegetation within the ridge line, okay? Now, that's one. That's the context of my question. The second point that I'd like to raise has to do with the study done by Dr. Meralles, where it's pointed out that New Era has the most incidents of fires. And so I'd like to ask anyone here, maybe including the DNR, because the New Era facilities is actually both a relocation site, and it's not just the Iglesia ni Cristo that has built a facility there. There's another relocation site also initiated by an NGO. I think one of those is the Red Cross and another is for PWDs in San Isidro. So has there been some monitoring in terms of the issuance of an EIA for a large facility that such as the New Era that's been there for several years now, in terms of monitoring their compliance with those EIAs? And that would also apply to the other relocation sites within the latest Haba Peatland area. Anyone? Thank you.
Dr. Pastor, feel free to respond. I know you've said some things in the chat already, but if you want to add to it.
I'm not so sure about if relocation site, because you know this relocation site happened after, I think, the Yolanda incident, and I don't know if DNR require an EIA for housing sites like this. But well, it's good to know if there are. Probably there are from DNR here who can also answer this question so that we can review it, whether they are following the restrictions under the EIA. Because now you can observe in the Iglesia ni Cristo area, they are really, you know, trying to open big tracts of Peatland area for vegetable, for agriculture. Maybe we can ask anybody from the DNR here.
Would someone from the DNR like to respond?
Probably from the Environmental Management Bureau.
Environmental Management Bureau. Do we have a representative?
Yeah, EMB. Probably nobody from DNR here.
Perhaps.
But anyway, yeah. Perhaps they just let it, the housing unit was just given a permit because of this Yolanda, you know, crazy problem after just Yolanda.
Thank you, Doc Pastor. But maybe for the members of the consortium, this could be one track for us to clarify with the DENR Region 8 whether there was in fact an EIA issued, an EIS issued for those relocation projects. But as far as I know, the New Era project has been there, Doc Pastor. Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong. It's been there even before Yolanda, right?
yeah. But it's been there as a small village maybe before Yolanda. Then it goes bigger after Yolanda, and they are putting a lot of buildings, processing buildings, so on and so forth. I'm not so sure about that. Anyway, anybody from Alang-Alang probably knows the development of the new era.
Can I say something about it?
Yes, please go ahead.
Actually, the new era community has become a limitation in our studies because people living in within that community they really decline to provide the needed data. By the way, the mention about the observance of forest fires in new era, it's not just in new era but in the vicinity areas near the new era, but not as immediate that it's in the new era community.
Thank you for your input, Dr. Lilbeth. Actually, there's a question from Nino Bensalada. I'm not sure if you touched on this just now, but are there local policies or initiatives controlling peat activity? If there is, why is it illegal settlements are still active aside from the issued CLOA to the selected individual? Dr. Lilbeth, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I mentioned in my presentation that there are actions being done by the municipal local government unit and also the communities. And one of the concrete actions done by the municipal local government unit is they were able to craft a local area something. It's an ordinance that prohibits people from engaging in activities that are deterrent to the peatland, to the conservation of the peatland. However, one of my students also did a study on how knowledgeable are these people about the importance of peatlands, and we were also asking why is it that people were saying they are so knowledgeable about the peatland, and then the local government units are also saying they're doing their share, doing some information campaign, letting people know that the peatland is very important, that we have to protect the peatland. I am concerned about the peatland. Why? Because I am an alang-alanganon by heart. I am an alang-alanganon by heart. So it's the reason why I keep on doing this series of studies. But then it still remains to be a question. We have to really do some detailed follow-up researches for us to be able to uncover what really is in every person, in every household, in every community folk, uh, what is in them. It could be deep-seated psychological issues. That's why yesterday I mentioned about trying to redirect the mind frame of people so that they will come to realize that they have to help, they have to engage themselves actively on the management of sustainable management of the peatland, not only in words but also in actions, because that's the problem when we talk about people. Sometimes people would say we are doing this when in fact they're not doing it. Thank you.
Excuse me, can I add something or give an input?
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Nino.
Okay, I just like I asked that question, Doc Bet, it because it's for me, I am just like quite curious or confused. Why is it the local government unit of Alang-Alang hasn't intensified this implementation if such there is a national government laws and policies and that they should be adopted on. In on by that on that probable efforts and initiative, it should be having a collective effort with the participation coming from the barangay level, and also from the barangay level, it is also down to the purok level. So by then, if there is a effort, collaborative effort, and with this area in barangay, I will be able to know what is the situation within the area so that they were able to monitor, because they are the one who will monitor the area since that this is part of this jurisdiction. And but I mean that's like an addition to that, this part of the discussion. But yeah, that's one of my question. Why is it that they are not trying to implement this one? And then in addition, with the question before with Sir Joda and the discussion with Dr. Pastor, I guess in the requirement of having a relocation, because I worked before with the Red Cross, the Red Cross and the LGU having a memorandum of agreement, given that the LGU are the one who will comply all the other requirements, the requirements, the requirements that needed in the relocation site in building this shelter or relocation shelters for this affected in the Typhoon Yolanda in the previous years. So therefore, the municipal, the MPDO or the Municipal Planning and Development Office, the Centro and other offices related in the LGU, they are the one who are able to comply this requirement submitted to the national government agencies in the regional office, like especially the EIA, because that's a very important that this environmental impact assessment, having issued a certificate from the MGB for the land area, and the other because they need to secure if the area is not a flood prone area, so they need to secure this permit from the MGB and also from other bureaus from the DNR, and which is the requirement documents coming from the National Housing Authority or the NHA. As far as concerned, that is the very basic requirement required by the NGOs or the international humanitarian actors before they are going to put up the settlement or the relocation site for these affected families. But yeah, that is why I asked Dr. Beth on regards on the policies and other local policies. Why? Because why they are allowing this they're supposed to be the peatland or the reserve area, which is having a big role in the community and absorbing the excess water which is caused on the flood. Why they are allowed it having this another location for the housing or other community, which is not as I remember before working with the project with Red Cross and wetlands in Agusan Mars in Proud of My Porok project. It is part of the national policies and laws that before implementing such activities, it should be validated first, or what would be the worst effect, because the risk itself is there. It is mentioned in the methodology in the framework of Dr. Beth that it is included the municipal disaster reduction and management concept or the aspect. It because we need to evaluate the whole thing from the disaster risk reduction and the climate change and the environmental ecosystem itself, because these two are always come together because of this the changes of the climate or the ecosystem, the disturbance with the ecosystem, there is a disaster risk, and that is why there are now different hazards happening in the area or might be possible in the other years. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I suppose this can be connected to the comprehensive land use plan. If only not only the municipal level but also in the barangay level, there should be a comprehensive land use plan, because we can do away with unnecessary infrastructure being constructed in specific areas of specific communities. It reduces to the implementation of a comprehensive land use plan that should really be in place. Thank you.
Dr. Lilibeth, I think there's a question for you about what kinds of fishes are being caught in the peatland by Maria from the ENR.
On this particular question, I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to answer it, but we have a group, we have a team at Visayas State University, Alang-Alang, who is presently doing a research on the different species. It could, of the different species of both plants and animals, so fishes and other wildlife in Leyte Saba Basin peatland. All they have now is the initial results. Sad to say, we had this pandemic. We are supposed to complete the study, but the pandemic happened.
Thank you for your response. We still have a few questions, but maybe let's take a question for Madam Teresita from Ruben. Is teacock harvested in mainly peat areas, and is there differences of teacock sourced from other wetland sources? What is the main issue of teacock cultivation as a source of livelihood? Would Madam Teresa want to answer that now? Mr. Zita, you're still muted. Would you like to answer the question from Ruben about differences of teacock source from other wetlands?
Yes, the peacock materials are abundant in different peatlands of Santa Fe, Alang-Alang, and San Miguel, and also Calao. But from summer, the rivers in summer are getting this material in these areas.
Is teacock harvested mainly in peat areas?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Are there issues cultivating teacock for a source of livelihood?
Are there issues cultivating teacock? It is wild.
It is wild and it grows in swampy areas in the peatland.
I see. Okay, I think that should answer Ruben's question for Madam Teresita. So yeah, let's move on to the next question. There is a question for Dr. Lilibeth from Cynthia of DNR ERDB to see if predictive models of peatland fires could be made from the data gathered. Dr. Lilibeth, would you like to take that?
I don't think so. We can do a predictive model out of the data we collected, because coming up with a predictive model, we have to be very specific on the data that we should be collecting in the field, and this would not just include data coming from people, but it should include physical observations, or just say the soil, perhaps the extent of destruction. So these things could contribute coming up with a predictive model, not just the narrations given by people.
Thank you for that response, Dr. Lilibeth. I would also like to add that the same data sets I mentioned earlier for VAERS and MODIS for fire occurrences throughout the world, that can be a useful resource for predictive modeling for peat fires, but we do need the extent of peatlands in Philippines, which is also available from some GIS layers that are already made available, open sourced. So if we overlay that and try to run a predictive modeling, that might work, but it will require some expertise. So I think Dr. Pastor has answered quite a few of the questions that's been raised. Perhaps now I'll open up to the floor for anyone who wants to ask a question to raise their hands so that I could call you to raise your question directly. Because I think most of the questions have been asked that have been asked in the chat box have been answered. So if I've left anyone out so far, I'm sorry. But now's a good time for you to use the raise hand function. All right, we have one from Nino. So Nino, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
This question is addressed to Ma'am Tess, Ma'am Teresita. Hello, Ma'am Tess. I just want to ask the question if actually I've written it in the chat box, but I'm just like curious about how is it, what is the mechanism of this livelihood project by the community made of the TICO coming from the Peatland? Because the most actually the benefit of this is that like you provided the community with the livelihood, but how about the sharing process? Is there any compensation was given to the local economy to the localities, especially in the IPs and the barangay, with regards on the payment for ecosystem services? It's because these services, just like the ecosystem itself, providing this the TICO coming from the peatlands, of course, as part of the initiative, we need to have a share of what the services provided by the ecosystem in the local initiative, so that in the future, if there is a projects or programs and activities or the PPAs in the barangay or the local areas, they were able to sustain the projects or the activities that they have. So I'm just like curious if in your area, are you practicing this, having a sharing of the other costs, like for example, or the benefits or what? Yes, Ma'am Tess.
Mr. Tita, would you like to take that question?
Okay. There's still no mechanism on that because the land are owned by private persons.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for answering that. Would you like to add still to it?
No, that's all.
Okay, thank you for your response. Would there be any other, maybe one last question? If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and I will allow you to put forth your question. All right, we have one from Judah again, so feel free to speak up, Judah.
Thank you. One last point, Dr. Pastor. No, I understand there's still a lot of studies that need to be undertaken to better understand the latest ABA and the dynamics. But in the current study that you've done so far, has resource flows, including water, sediment, and other such materials been considered? I'm asking this because, again, we'd like to see how relevant is the bigger later river basin, which right now encompasses the Palo, Binahaan, and Dagitan Marabong towards the southeast, impacts on the latest Sabah. And this is important because if we consider payment for ecosystem services, which Nino mentioned, the latest Sabah would be a very good model for the rest of the major watersheds in Leyte in terms of applying resource flows and benefits to sharing of equity in terms of benefits. Doc Pastor?
Hi, John. Thank you. Actually, for Leyte Sub-Basin, there are only two main river watersheds that contributes water, meaning in terms of resource flows, this river basin going to San Miguel, and the one other going to Palo. These are the two river basins that contributes or having a significant contribution to Leyte Sub-Basin. The other river or watersheds like the Dagitan and the other you mentioned, it has no connection in terms of water because it's a separate watershed. Well, in terms of this study on resource flows, actually there is now a hydrology study that I am writing, and hopefully it will be funded by the Forest Foundation of the Philippines on the hydrology. So it will now include the sedimentation, the soil erosion, and other possible factors that will contribute to the degradation of Leyte or the Leyte Sub-Basin area. And only that I have not yet completed the proposal, but I'm now about probably next month I can finish the proposal. But I want to have it as much as possible complete in terms of looking at the in and outs of the different factors that contributes, like the parameters related to water, the in and out, like for example the water level, the water table level in relation to rainfall and the outflow in these two rivers, the Palo River and the San Miguel River, including erosion and all of these related factors with hydrology. Yeah, I think the Dagitan watershed is separate. It has contributed to Dulag, and the other watersheds I forgot that you mentioned is. What I mean is only these river basins from going to Palo and going to San Miguel are the one affecting the Leyte Sub-Basin. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Doc Pastor.
Thank you for that. And with that, I want to thank all three of our speakers for their wonderful talks today. Hope we've all learned something about the Philippines with wetland, peatlands, and what goes on in and about them. So next, we are going to go to closing. And before that, I just want to plug this in so that you all can continue to remain in contact with us, keep in touch after this webinar series. We just want to make sure that it's not a touch and go. So please follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, or sign up to get our to be on our mailing list in the links shown here. With that, I want to pass this time to Tommy for to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jokian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for also for the speakers. So this session has been an eye-opening for the coalitions of people for Peat, in which the three topics delivered is been putting the context of the challenge that we are trying to address within the implementations of the SUPA program across the ASEAN, specifically when we're talking about the situations in the Philippines. So the work that has been done related to the peatland mappings, improving the livelihoods of the communities, and also looking at the underlying factors or challenge in terms of slash and burning activities, those are actually the challenge that we are trying to cope with and to be able to develop with alternatives or new insights to approach the problems. It's been a very insightful sessions. Again, I thank you all the speakers for delivering their experience and knowledge, giving us an incredible insights for continue and moving forward to the next phase of the activities. So hopefully we'll be able to talk again, be that virtually or directly after the pandemic. I would like also to thank all the participants. By look at the numbers of people participating in this webinar, it's yeah, I feel that there is quite a hope that there is awareness and there is also interest for people actually to be able to contribute themselves to the improvement the capacity of the non-state actors in making sure that the objective of sustainable peatland management will be achieved in the Philippines and hopefully also in the ASEAN region. By this, I would like also to thank again for EU for supporting the SUPA programs, and there will be also other webinars coming after this, and we will be in touch for. Please look at the notifications on the People for Peat social page for other webinars soon after this. Thank you again and have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
Thank